For 15 years of marriage with Jennifer, predictability was our anchor. She was the woman of coffee at 6:30 a.m., the goodbye kiss at 7:15, and the punctual return at 6 p.m., with the week's dinner plans already laid out. Jennifer was the embodiment of order, with a color-coded calendar and an aversion to any deviation from the routine. I, Marcus, an accountant by profession, found comfort in this routine. It was our life, and I believed it was enough. But 3 months ago, the familiar melody of our life began to go out of tune. Small dissonances emerged, and each one sounded like a deafening alarm in my mind. It started subtly. Jennifer, who used to walk into the house as if home were a natural extension of herself, began to linger in the car, in the garage. I would watch her from the kitchen window, phone pressed to her ear, animated conversations stretching for 20, sometimes 30 minutes. When I asked about it later, she would brush it off, saying it was just work stuff, Marcus. You know how demanding the marketing department can be. But I knew Jennifer's work voice. This wasn't work. Then came the weekend changes. My wife, who used to dedicate Saturdays to reorganizing closets and planning our grocery lists, suddenly needed me time. She would disappear for hours, claiming she was shopping or getting coffee with friends I had never heard of. When she returned, there were no shopping bags, no receipts, no stories about these mysterious friends. The final straw came on a Tuesday night 3 weeks ago. I was working late in my home office when I heard her car pull into the garage around 8 p.m. Instead of coming inside, she stayed out there for 45 minutes. I walked to the garage door and listened. Her voice was different, softer, more intimate. She was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years, the kind of breathless giggle she used to save for me when we were dating. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow," I heard her whisper. "Yes, the usual place, same time." My stomach dropped. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not an idiot either. I've been an accountant for 20 years. I know how to follow patterns, how to gather evidence, how to build an airtight case. So I drove to the electronics store on my lunch break the next day and bought a voice-activated digital recorder, the kind private investigators use. Small enough to hide, sensitive enough to pick up conversations clearly. That evening, while Jennifer showered, I slipped into the garage and placed it under her driver's seat, tucked between the cushion and the center console where she would never notice it. My hands were shaking as I pressed the activation button. Part of me hoped I was wrong, hoped I was just a paranoid husband letting my imagination run wild. I wasn't wrong. 24 hours later, I had my answer. Actually, I had 3 hours and 17 minutes of answers, and every single second felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. The first recording was from her drive to work that Thursday morning, a phone conversation with someone named Michael. Her boss, I realized, with growing horror. They weren't discussing quarterly reports or marketing strategies. They were planning their afternoon meeting at the Marriott downtown, discussing which room number, what time, what she should wear. But it was the second recording that truly destroyed me. "God, Michael, being with you makes me feel alive again. I forgot what passion felt like. Marcus is so predictable. The same routine, the same conversations, the same everything. He hasn't made me feel desired in years." I had to pause the recording. My wife of 15 years, the woman I had built a life with, was talking about me like I was some boring roommate she had gotten stuck with. "I know you're married too, but what we have is special. When I'm with you, I remember who I used to be before I became this suburban housewife going through the motions." The recording went on. Details about their 3-month affair, how they had been meeting every Thursday at the same hotel, how she had been lying about late meetings and weekend work sessions,
How she had bought expensive lingerie I had never seen, for their encounters. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was listening to her describe our marriage as if it were a prison sentence she was serving, as if I were this pathetic, boring man she had settled for instead of the passionate life she deserved. That night, I sat in my office until 3 a.m., listening to every recording, taking notes as if I were preparing for a deposition, because in a way I was. By the time Jennifer woke up the next morning, cheerfully asking if I wanted pancakes for breakfast as if nothing had changed, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to destroy her. For 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. Every morning, I would kiss Jennifer goodbye as if nothing had changed, tell her to have a good day at work, and wish her luck with her late meeting on Thursdays. Then I would go to my office and methodically plan her destruction, as if I were organizing a corporate audit. I kept recording. Every conversation gave me more ammunition. I learned that Michael Patterson, her boss, was married to a woman named Sarah. They had 3 kids, twin boys who were 10 and a daughter who was 7. I found this out because Jennifer and Michael discussed how guilty he felt about lying to his family, though apparently not guilty enough to stop screwing my wife in hotel rooms. Sarah's been planning this big family vacation to Disney World, Michael said during one particularly nauseating recording. The kids are so excited. God, if she knew what I was doing. Don't think about that right now, Jennifer replied, her voice sultry in a way that made my skin crawl. Think about tomorrow. Think about what I'm going to do to you in that hotel room. I had to stop the recording and pour myself 3 fingers of whiskey. It was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. But their guilt gave me something valuable: information. Michael lived at 847 Maple Street in the Riverside neighborhood. He drove a black BMW X5. He coached his son's Little League team on weekends. Sarah worked part-time as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. I also discovered Jennifer had been more creative with her lies than I had initially realized. Those shopping trips on weekends, she had actually been meeting Michael at different locations, sometimes his car in remote parking lots, sometimes a cabin his friend owned an hour outside the city. She had bought a separate phone plan to text him, thinking she was covering her tracks. What she didn't know was that I had found the receipts. My wife had always been terrible at hiding financial evidence. I had found her hotel receipts tucked into a purse when I was looking for her car keys, the lingerie purchases on our shared credit card, Victoria's Secret charges for items I had never seen her wear, gas station receipts from parts of town she had no reason to visit, always on Thursday afternoons. By the end of the 2nd week, I had a complete dossier: photos of the receipts, transcripts of the most damaging recordings, screenshots of the mysterious phone number that appeared on our phone bill starting 3 months ago. I even found the business card for the cabin rental in her jacket pocket. The morning I decided to execute my plan, I woke up before Jennifer and made her coffee, just like I had every day for 15 years. I even added the vanilla creamer she liked, stirring it exactly 3 times counterclockwise because she claimed it mixed better that way. "You're sweet, honey," she said, kissing my cheek before heading to the shower. "I might be late tonight. We're having some issues with the Morrison account that might require overtime." There was no Morrison account. There never had been. I had called her office and asked. "No problem," I replied, watching her disappear down the hallway. "I'll probably work late too." As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I opened my laptop and began executing Phase 1. First, I researched Sarah Patterson. It wasn't hard to find her. Nurses at St. Mary's had profiles on the hospital website. She looked kind, with laugh lines around her eyes and blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. In her bio, she mentioned her 3 children and her love of family camping trips. I crafted an email to her personal address, which I had found through her Facebook profile. The subject line was simple: "About your husband, Michael." "Mrs. Patterson," I wrote, "I'm writing to inform you that your husband has been having an affair with my wife, Jennifer Coleman, for the past 3 months. I know this is devastating news, but I felt you deserved to know the truth. I've attached evidence of their relationship, including recordings and receipts. I'm sorry to be the bearer of this news, but I believe you have the right to know what's happening in your marriage. If you need additional evidence or have questions, please don't hesitate to contact me." I attached the most damning recordings and hit send before I could change my mind. Phase 2 was even simpler. Jennifer's company, Morrison and Associates Marketing, had a strict policy about workplace relationships, especially between supervisors and subordinates. I had read their employee handbook cover to cover. Relationships between managers and direct reports were grounds for immediate termination. I created an anonymous email account and sent the evidence to their HR department with a simple message: "Michael Patterson, marketing director, has been having an inappropriate relationship with his subordinate, Jennifer Coleman. This violates company policy regarding supervisor-subordinate relationships. Please find evidence attached. By noon, both emails were sent. By 2 p.m., my phone was ringing. Marcus? It was a woman's voice, shaky and tearful. This is Sarah Patterson. Did you really send me those recordings? Sarah Patterson's voice was barely above a whisper, but I could hear the devastation clearly. I listened to the recordings. That's really Michael's voice. And your wife. She couldn't finish the sentence. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this is horrible to hear, but I thought you deserved to know. How long? She asked. How long has this been going on? 3 months, based on what I've discovered. They meet every Thursday at the downtown Marriott, room 237. They were planning a weekend getaway next month. The silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. My children, she finally whispered. Oh God, my children. We were supposed to go to Disney World next month. Michael said he might have to cancel because of work commitments. But it wasn't work, was it? It was her. The pain in her voice should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it fed something dark and hungry inside me. This was what Jennifer had done to our marriage, except I had been too blind to see it happening. Sarah, I need you to know that I'm filing for divorce. I have an appointment with my attorney tomorrow. If you need copies of any evidence for your own proceedings, I'm happy to share everything I have. Yes, she said, her voice growing stronger. Yes, I want copies of everything. I want Michael to see exactly what he has lost. By Thursday afternoon, everything was in motion. I had met with Daniel Reeves, the best divorce attorney in town, and filed preliminary papers. In our state, adultery significantly affected asset division, and I had ironclad evidence. Daniel estimated I would keep the house, my retirement accounts, and most of our savings, but I wasn't done. At 3 p.m., while Jennifer was presumably in room 237 of the Marriott with Michael, my phone rang. It was Sarah again. Marcus, I did something, she said, her voice different now, harder, more determined. I called Michael's office. I asked to speak with him about our Disney trip. His secretary said he was in an important meeting and couldn't be disturbed. Did you tell her who you were? Oh, yes. I told her I was Mrs. Patterson and that it was urgent family business regarding our children. When she still wouldn't put me through, I said I would just drive over and wait in his office until his important meeting was finished. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. What happened then? She must have panicked and interrupted their meeting because suddenly Michael was on the phone, asking why I was calling his work. I told him I knew about Jennifer. I told him I had heard the recordings.
I told him not to bother coming home. How did he react? Sarah's laugh was bitter. He tried to deny it at first, said I was being paranoid, so I played one of the recordings over the phone, loud enough for his secretary to hear. The one where your wife is describing what she wants to do to him in explicit detail. My stomach clenched. I hadn't expected Sarah to be so ruthless, but I had to admire her efficiency. The secretary hung up the phone, Sarah continued. I imagine Michael's afternoon just got very complicated. She was right. At 4:47 p.m., my phone exploded with text messages from Jennifer. Marcus, something's happened at work. Can you call me? Please call me back immediately. It's urgent. Marcus, where are you? I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the grocery store and bought ingredients for Jennifer's favorite meal, chicken parmesan with garlic bread and Caesar salad. I also stopped at the print shop and made copies of everything. The recordings, transcribed word for word, photos of receipts, screenshots of credit card statements, pictures of the lingerie tags I had found in her dresser. When Jennifer finally came home at 7 p.m., her face was blotchy from crying, and her hands were shaking. She had clearly been expecting to find me worried sick, ready to comfort her through whatever crisis had occurred at work. Instead, she found me in the dining room, our good china set for two, candles lit, wine poured. Every place setting had a manila folder beside the plate. Marcus, she said carefully, taking in the scene, what's all this? Sit down, Jennifer. We need to talk. Her eyes flicked to the folders, then back to my face. Something in my expression must have warned her because she didn't move toward the table. "I think I should tell you what happened at work first," she said, her voice artificially bright. "There was some kind of misunderstanding with Michael's wife. She called the office and—" "Sit down!" The command in my voice stopped her mid-sentence. Slowly, like she was approaching a dangerous animal, Jennifer walked to her chair and sat down. Her fingers hovered over the folder beside her plate. "Open it," I said. She did. The first page was a transcript of her conversation with Michael from 2 days ago, where she had described in graphic detail what she wanted him to do to her. Her face went white. "Marcus, I can explain—" "Keep reading." She flipped through the pages with growing horror. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, photos of the lingerie, transcripts of conversations where she had called me boring, predictable, passionless. When she reached the last page, a photo of our marriage certificate with "void" written across it in red ink, she looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "How long have you known?" she whispered. 3 weeks, I said calmly, cutting into the chicken parmesan I had prepared with such care. "I've known for 3 weeks, and I've spent every single day of those 3 weeks planning this moment." Jennifer's hands were shaking as she stared at the evidence spread before her. "Marcus, please, let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. It developed over time, and I never meant for it to go so far." "Which part wasn't supposed to happen?" I asked, taking a sip of wine. "The part where you've been fucking your boss for 3 months, or the part where you told him I was a boring, predictable husband who couldn't satisfy you anymore?" She flinched at my language. In 15 years of marriage, I had rarely sworn in front of her. "I never said those things to hurt you," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to hear them." "But you said them, you meant them." I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "Tell me, Jennifer, which part was a lie? The part where you told Michael you felt alive with him, or the part where you've been kissing me goodbye every morning for the past 3 months? Tears were streaming down her face now, but I felt nothing. The man who would have comforted her, who would have held her while she cried, had died the moment I heard those recordings. "Both," she said finally. "Both were lies. I love you, Marcus. I've always loved you. What happened with Michael was it was fantasy. It wasn't real life."
Because the hotel receipts seem pretty real. The lingerie you bought for him seems pretty real. The cabin you visited last weekend while you told me you were shopping with Rebecca seems pretty real. Her face crumpled completely. "How do you know about the cabin?" "I know everything, Jennifer. I know that Michael coaches his son's Little League team on Saturdays, which is why you moved your meetings to Sundays. I know that you've been using the Starbucks on 5th Street as a cover story because it's in the opposite direction from where you were actually going. I know that you plan to ask me for a trial separation next month so you could spend that weekend with Michael in Vermont." She stared at me in horror. "You've been following me." "I didn't need to follow you. You documented everything yourself. Receipts, credit card statements, location data on your phone. You were never as clever as you thought you were." Jennifer pushed back from the table and started pacing. "Okay, fine, you caught me. But Marcus, we can work through this. Couples survive affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, we can—" "No." The single word stopped her mid-sentence. "We can't work through this because I don't want to work through this. I don't want to go to counseling with someone who thinks I'm boring and predictable. I don't want to rebuild trust with someone who spent 3 months planning to leave me. And I especially don't want to save a marriage with someone who bought lingerie for another man while telling me we couldn't afford a vacation this year." "Marcus, please. I'm not finished." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, returning with a bottle of champagne I had been saving for our anniversary. "You see, while you were planning your secret weekend with Michael, I was planning something too." I popped the cork and poured myself a glass. Jennifer watched in stunned silence. "Today,
your boyfriend received some very interesting phone calls. First, his wife called his office and played one of your recordings over speakerphone, loud enough for his secretary to hear. Then HR called him in for a meeting about inappropriate workplace relationships. Funny thing about Morrison and Associates, they have a zero-tolerance policy for managers who sleep with their subordinates. The color drained from Jennifer's face. What are you saying? I'm saying that as of 5 p.m. today, both you and Michael are unemployed. Sarah Patterson has filed for divorce and is seeking full custody of their 3 children. And tomorrow morning, you'll be served with divorce papers that will ensure I keep this house, my retirement account, and most of our savings, thanks to our state's adultery laws. Jennifer collapsed into her chair. You destroyed my career. You destroyed Michael's marriage. I didn't destroy anything. You did that the moment you decided our marriage wasn't enough for you. She looked up at me with something approaching rage. You think you're so perfect, don't you? So righteous. But what you've done is worse than anything I did. I made a mistake, but you systematically destroyed people's lives. Michael's children are growing up in a broken home because of you. For the first time since I had started this plan, her words hit their mark. The image of 3 children, twin boys and a 7-year-old girl, losing their father because of my choices, flashed through my mind. But then I remembered her voice on those recordings, laughing about how boring our marriage had become. I remembered her excitement about planning a future that didn't include me. Michael's children are growing up in a broken home because their father chose to have an affair with a married woman. Sarah Patterson is getting divorced because her husband chose to betray his vows. You're losing your job because you chose to sleep with your boss. I didn't make those choices for any of you. But you chose to expose everything in the most devastating way possible, she shot back. You could have just asked for a divorce. You could have confronted me privately. Instead, you made sure everyone would know. Everyone would judge us. She wasn't wrong, and we both knew it. You're right, I said quietly. I could have handled this differently. But you know what, Jennifer? I wanted everyone to know. I wanted Sarah to know what kind of man she married. I wanted your colleagues to know what kind of person you are. I wanted consequences that matched the betrayal. We sat in silence for several minutes. The ruins of our marriage spread across the dining room table between us. What happens now? She finally asked. Now, you find somewhere else to live. Tonight. The divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow, and I suggest you get your own attorney, because mine is very good at his job. Jennifer looked around our home, the house we had bought together 7 years ago, where we had planned to grow old together, like she was seeing it for the last time. I never wanted it to end like this, she whispered. Neither did I. But you ended it the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. As she walked upstairs to pack, I poured another glass of champagne and sat alone in our dining room. The house felt different already, like the life we had built together was already becoming a memory. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt like justice had been served. Instead, I just felt empty. 6 months later, I'm sitting in this same dining room, writing this post. Jennifer moved in with her parents after losing the house in the divorce. She's been unemployed since the day I exposed the affair. Turns out our industry is smaller than she thought, and word travels fast. Michael's divorce was finalized last month. He lost custody of his kids and had to move to a different state to find work. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far, if my need for revenge crossed the line into cruelty. 3 children lost their father. A woman I had never met had her life destroyed by information I chose to give her. My own wife, whatever else she had done, I had loved her once, was left with nothing. But then I remember those recordings. I remember her laugh when she described how boring our marriage had become. I remembered her excitement about planning a future that didn't include me. So I ask you, Was I justified in exposing everything, or did I become the monster in this story? When someone betrays you completely, how much destruction is too much? Because honestly, even after everything, I'm still not sure I know the answer. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama. Got a take on the situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.